Hello, Nawaz. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Good For Us. And today we're going to discuss the T20 World Cup and go through a breakdown of the top 8 teams. And I know everyone talks to me about why do you call them top 8? They're just in the Super 12s already, okay? They don't need to qualify. That's why I call them the top 8. And I have a very special guest, someone who has the ability to do comedy, who has the ability to do commentary and talk about cricket in all Twitter spaces and YouTube and everything like that. Welcome to Cricket For Us, Aatif. How are you doing, man?
I'm good, Ashid. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
I appreciate that. I said this off camera, fan moment for me. So if I stumble, I apologize. I'm going to get straight into it, just so we don't take too much of your time. Let's talk about Group 1. So we have Australia, England, New Zealand, and Afghanistan who are included in there. So let's start with Australia, a team that are hosts and current T20 champions. How do you see them faring in this year's T20 World Cup?
Yeah, I think they're certainly going to be amongst the favorites. Australia always are when you're playing in Australia, but they seem to have a very strong combination at the moment. Particularly with sort of Cameron Green fitting in quite nicely between those two opening batters that we, know for such a long time and that have been so effective for Australia for such a long time. I just think they're always, you can't rule them out, almost guaranteed semi-finalists. They do have a tough group to come through though, because Afghanistan can spring upon a surprise on anybody. They'll have to come through New Zealand, England. That's going to be tough. And then obviously whomever qualifies from the preliminary stage. So, yeah, I think I'd still back Australia to get through that group. I don't think they'll go as well as England, but I think they've got a pretty good shot. I mean, they're at home. This is as good as their shots get.
Yeah, and one thing I just want to add with regards to Australia, you can't ever count them out. That's the funny thing about the way they play cricket. And can you imagine the first T20 World Cup they won was just last year? Otherwise, they hadn't had that opportunity or gotten to a stage where they could have won it all. If I had to ask you one player from Australia that you would see as the key player for them or a player to watch out for this year's T20 World Cup, who would that be?
It would have been Cameron Green, but I've mentioned him already. So let me give you a different one. Let's go. I'm going to go Adam Zampa. I mean, he's like come on leaps and bounds in the last few years. He's been so effective for Australia. I think on the surfaces that they're going to play the T20 World Cup in that particular part of Australia, I expect that bounce to suit him, that quickness to suit him. Not unlike sort of Rashid Khan. But, with the home advantage there as well, I think Adam Zampa is going to surprise a lot of people because the focus in the build-up has been on their seam attack and, they're outstanding fast bowlers. But I'm looking forward to seeing Zampa do the business.
Fantastic. You're the first one to say Zampa, so I'm glad we have some variety. Happy with that. Let's shift our attention to the country that we're sitting in at the moment. So let's talk about England. Arguably the world number one in all white ball cricket for the past number of years now. They have this new in the sense that, they developed it a few years ago, but compared to other teams, they have this aggressive approach that is almost unparalleled with the other countries that play T20 cricket. And it's great to watch as a neutral, especially, but if you're against England, it's really, really tough. So how do you see England faring in this year's T20 World Cup?
I think they're faring, I expect them to fare really well. I think anything short of a semi-final would be considered a massive, just a huge surprise. I mean, this is, as you say, one of the best T20 teams in the world. I mean, there's a slight question mark about the way they organize their bowling order. Not to say they're not all brilliant, but getting the best combination on the day can be a bit challenging for them just because of the resources that they have. There's talk about where they fit Milan in, Ben Stokes at 4, and then you still got the likes of Livingston and Harry Brook, and how do you accommodate them? How do you get the most out of Moeen Ali? There's just so many resources there. But I still expect them to go very far. I mean, this is a team that inherited Owen Morgan's determination. You've got a brand new captain who's looking to, do the business. He's had a difficult summer at home already. He wants to show why England are considered this world-beating, impressive side. So, yeah, if I had to make a prediction for the whole tournament, I'd say Pakistan, because I always say Pakistan. But my sort of real second prediction would be England. It wouldn't always be England, but certainly now, based on the strength and the balance and the resources and the run-up they've had to the World Cup, I think they've got to be, for me, sort of favourites.
I'm glad we resonate in the same brain space at the moment, because I agree with you. So I'm glad, especially the Pakistan point all the time, every single time. If you had to pick one player, though, because you mentioned a few names there, you mentioned Harry Brooks, someone who's burst onto the international scene, but we've seen him in county cricket and T20 Blasts and even the PSL, how well he's done. So if you had to pick one player from England, who would that be?
I'm going to pick Alex Hales. I'm going to tell you a little cheat here, by the way, Astrid, right? With picking players for this, if you're trying to pick like standout players in a T20 competition, always go with opening batters because they're guaranteed to play in most games. It's the same as when you're putting a fantasy league together. You always pick opening batters because they're guaranteed to do something. So even if they get out early, okay, fair enough. But they're definitely going to get a bat. Whereas your number 4 or number 5 might not even get a chance to have a bat, depending on conditions. They might not get a bowl. So I think Alex Hill. I would have gone Joss Butler. I love Joss Butler. I know he's got a point to prove, and it's a huge tournament for him. He might well bring a huge trophy home from Australia, which no other England captain has done before. I mean, certainly not a multi. Like a global tournament. But I think Alex Hales will end the tournament as one of the top run scorers. He's played in those conditions more than anybody else. He scored more Big Bash runs than anybody else in the last 3 years in the whole of the Big Bash, by the way. And he's just a great T20 player. Maybe the most experienced. Yeah, he is the most experienced active T20 player for England out there at the moment. So, and he doesn't like to play second fiddle. We've seen this throughout. Trent Rockets, whoever he's playing, he doesn't like to be number 2. So I expect Alex Hales to do really well. He's my guy to watch for England.
Fantastic. Yeah, his return to the England setup, one, surprising, but very happy about it personally, because I think the way he's been playing cricket over the years is just unparalleled. I completely agree with you in terms of T20 experience and all that, definitely. I'm next going to talk about a team that just absolutely hammered Pakistan this morning, right? A team that I had thought, oh, they look pretty okay. They've come in and absolutely battered Pakistan in this T20 game. Yes, it was a slow pitch and all that. And I know I'm supposed to be talking about the T20 World Cup. And I just can't stop talking about this particular match this morning. And the way they played, the way that they bowled, but also the way that their spinners came into play. New Zealand and their spinners, something you don't resonate with them. And then with the bat, the way the Finn Allen, I think he might just arguably try and take over Martin Guptill's spot. But again, it's almost uncalled for here. But I think he has that ability to be able to be someone who takes over from Guptill moving forward. If you had to pick someone from New Zealand also, before I even ask that, how do you see New Zealand going in this T20 World Cup?
I think they'll do okay. I think they'll have a slightly more difficult time of it. I don't know why, but I don't see them as as the favorite. So I put sort of England and Australia's chances above New Zealand, and that's really unfair of me, by the way, because New Zealand have done really well in global tournaments before. They keep making finals and semi-finals and things like that on a regular basis. I just think on this occasion, the balance of the other teams in their group outweighs them. And it's sort of unlucky for them. If they could trade places, for example, with South Africa and be in the other group, I think they might have a better chance of getting through India or Pakistan with their lineup. But again, I think the performance we saw today is unlike anything you'll see at the World Cup. You're unlikely to see 13 overs of spin in any game. I mean, you might, but it's very, very unlikely in an innings. So yeah, I don't think they'll be contenders, is the truth. And I'm very sorry to my friends in New Zealand. And if I'm proven wrong, feel free to clip this bit and troll me and all that kind of stuff. But I don't see them going all the way.
Yeah, fair enough. And again, I would have said exactly what you said about 13 hours ago, okay? Before that match happened. It just hit me a bit hard, but totally understand that. Thank you for that objective opinion. If you had to pick one player, though, from a New Zealand standpoint, who would that be?
I'm going with the captain. I'm going with Kane Williamson. I know that there's a lot of hype about Finn Allen and the Guptill spot, but I just think it's going to come down to Kane Williamson, having to hold up his team often, I suspect. And he's a great captain. He's an inspiring player. Again, he's played T20 cricket around the world, under pressure, high pressure situations, IPL, all of that, right? So I think he's the guy. Of course, they've got some very exciting seam bowlers and spinners as well. But like, if I was backing one guy, I'd go to the king. I'd go to Kane.
Fair enough. I think Kane Williamson has had a lean patch this year, I must say, but he's just hitting the right form in the right moment just for the T20 World Cup to start. So I totally get that. Let's talk about Afghanistan, which is currently the last team that we can talk about in Group 1. A team that has the ability to reach very close to beating a lot of teams, but unfortunately not all the time are able to complete the task. How do you see Afghanistan in this year's World Cup, T20 World Cup?
I think they will. I don't think they'll win the World Cup. I'm going to go ahead and say that's a big call, but I don't think Afghanistan's going to win the World Cup. Again, anything's possible in T20 cricket, but I think that group is very, very difficult for them. They've been paired up with all these teams. Like again, Afghanistan, as we saw in the Asia Cup, they can push teams really, really hard. And they can even overcome teams like India and even Pakistan. Like they can beat people on their days. But I think the approach with Afghanistan is to sort of everything that they do well is something that England, for example, do a lot better. I don't doubt that Afghanistan will take at least one big scalp in their group. I think they'll beat one of New Zealand, Australia, England, but I don't think they'll get through to the semi-finals. I think that's a bit of a stretch for Afghanistan.
No, I think one thing about Afghanistan is they've only been an international full member nation very short time. So it's surprising to say that, they might get to a point where they are able to get to semifinals in world tournaments and things like that. Let's talk about the player to watch out for from an Afghanistan perspective. Who would that be if you had to pick a player?
Oh, if I was going to be boring, I would say Rashid Khan or Mujibur Rahman. I'd go with the sort of really obvious guys, but I'll say the captain. I'll say Mohammad Nabi. I think well, no, actually, in fact, I'm going to say Hazratullah Zazai because of the rule. What's the rule, Ashjan? Opening batter, of course. If you're opening the batting, you're definitely going to play some part in the game. I'm going to go with Hazratullah Zazai. I just have a feeling that, again, he's that kind of explosive batter. He's a very exciting batter to watch as well. It's the kind of thing where if your team, the team that you're affiliated with, is playing them, you feel a bit like, well, like he got out. You kind of like to watch a player like that play. There's a little bit of Imran Nazir about him. Some people won't like that comparison, but I don't care. So
I love that comparison. I love that comparison. Don't worry.
Azizullah Zazai. I think he's just this kind of swashbuckling. He's everything people love about a T20 player. He's like aggressive. He goes hard. He's still only 24, according to the bio that I saw earlier. And yeah, he hasn't really proven himself on that level in the way that people would like to see. But I mean, I don't know if you remember his 162.
Yeah.
I mean, that was insane. I mean, what did I just watch? I think it's still if not the highest, then maybe the second highest score in T20 internationals. So yeah, I mean, Hazratullah Zazai, man, there you go. 160, 162, 161, 162 not out. That guy.
I love it. Absolutely love it. Let's turn our attention to Group 2, which includes India, Pakistan, South Africa, and Bangladesh. Now, I'm going to start off with India. How do you see them because of their vast number of games they've played this year in T20s, but also the different lineups and different variations in the side that they've gone with? Their team still doesn't seem to be 100% ready. Yes, you've got the loss of Ravindra Jadeja and Jasprit Bumrah, and potentially Deepak Chahar as well, from what I hear. So India isn't as fully ready for this T20 World Cup as they have been previously in terms of the players, but the amount of experience they've gained this entire year is great. So how do you see India in this year's T20 World Cup?
India, again, are one of those teams, not unlike England, that are blessed with resources. They've got so many different options. I mean, only Pakistan has played more T20 cricket in the last year than India have. Just because Pakistan plays an insane amount of T20 cricket, but India have still played a lot, and they've done that while also playing a superior number of ODI/tests this year as well. And the reason they can do that is they can often field teams in back-to-back games with completely different lineups. They do that all the time. You have sometimes you have Dhawan captaining, or you got people stepping in and doing little jobs for them. And you can replace your keeper. You can go to Sanju Samson when you want. You can go to Rishabh Pant when you want. You got an option, a reasonable replacement for every single position. What they don't have a reasonable replacement for, Ashjad, is Jasprit Bumrah, and that is gonna hurt a lot. It's possible that they could still go all the way without Jasprit Bumrah, but that kind of loss is very hard to replace. It's very similar for Pakistan with Shaheen Shah Afridi. He's obviously Pakistan's blessed with another attacker. We'll talk about that later. But your spearhead, your undisputed number one bowler, not being around makes things very, very difficult for you going ahead. So I expect India to make the semi-finals. I expect them to get through their group. And after the semi-finals, it's a bit of a toss-up. Anything can happen. But I would be very surprised if they. I wouldn't be very surprised. I'd be surprised if they went on to win the tournament. Just because it's hard with they've got a lot of again the same problem as England. They've got so many resources. How do you organize them into your best possible 11? Do you even really know what your best possible 11 is? I don't. I think they're still sort of debating things. They're going to make a bold call because that's what India does. They make a very bold, like we knew what we were going to do all along type thing. But I think everybody knows that it's a bit more complex than that.
Yeah, and there's a term that is used widely in cricket, horses for courses, and that's an ability that India has, depending on the track they're playing on, depending on the conditions. They can field a side that might well be the best 11 for that particular ground or those particular conditions, but might not be if they go to Perth from Adelaide, as an example. So yeah, I totally get that. If you had to pick a player from India, though, who would that be?
I'm going to break my own rule and go with Surya Kumar Yadav, just because I think he's in an exceptional form. If India do win the World Cup, I'm almost certain he will be named player of the tournament. Yeah. He's just been in the kind of form that is so rare at the moment. There was a phase where Joss Butler scored something like, I think it was 4 or 5 centuries over the course of an IPL season. And people said he's found Thor's hammer, right? Yeah. That's what it feels like with Surya Kumar Yadav at the moment. He's playing some incredible cricket, playing some beautiful shots, and really pushing Rizwan at the top of the rankings. And I think even Rizwan's biggest fans. I mean, Rizwan's an excellent player, fantastic player, but he doesn't have the natural gifts that Surya Kumar Yadav has. Rizwan is somebody who's worked hard at his game and developed his game and created and got the most out of himself, and he applied himself. His technique and his training and dedication to that is what's taken him to this. He's like David Beckham. Beckham talked. Sir Alex Ferguson used to say about David Beckham, like, he isn't great because of God-given skill. He's great because of endless, relentless dedication to practice. And it feels like that's what Rizwan is right now. Whereas I guess Surya Kumar Yadav is a bit like Ronaldo. Yeah. I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm not super good at football analogies. I shouldn't have gone that way. Certainly not modern analogies. But yeah, I think he's a great player, and he's en route to becoming maybe one of the greatest players this format's ever seen. And if India succeed, I think a lot of it will rely on him.
Yeah, one thing I just want to say, I know less about football than I know anything else, so I'm okay with that. I get Ronaldo and Beckham analogies, so I'm okay. We talk about Pakistan because you mentioned Rizwan and number 1 spot and Babar Azam number 3 spot in T20Is. Pakistan is always an enigma. Pakistan, in the famous words of Nasser Hussain, one day up, one day down, that kind of thing. But this has been the most consistent Pakistani team for a while. We haven't seen them play this amount of good cricket for, at least I haven't, from my memory, for the past a year and a half, that they've been performing quite well as a team, not just individual performances. I'm not counting the middle order. I will go to that. But in terms of, the top order succeeding and then the bowlers succeeding and the way they've kind of managed to win matches, even though they were certainly not able to win those matches if this was a couple of years ago with the side that Pakistan used to have. How would you see Pakistan in this year's T20 World Cup? Bearing in mind, 1992, Australia, Pakistan won the World Cup. Just say.
A different format, different era. I mean, that was about 30 years ago now, mate. So I'm trying not to think about that. But with Pakistan, if I try and separate my emotions, which tell me, as a Pakistan cricket fan, yes, of course, they're going to go all the way through and they're going to win the semi-finals. The balance for that team just isn't right. Pakistan is the kind of team that will win most of their games. Yeah, I agree with you. I'm not on board with that Nasser Hussain analogy. For me, Pakistan is a more consistent team than that. Than he's giving them credit for. I think what they're not realizing, again, Pakistan plays so much T20 cricket compared to the rest of the world. There's a lot more data, and people sort of over extrapolate from certain bits of things. But if you look at the overarching data, in the last 45 games that they've won, they've won 31 of them, or 30 something like that, right? So basically, they've won 2/3 of the game that they've played in the last year or so. That's pretty consistent. Now, the issue that a lot of people have with Pakistan is that they're not going to win all of their games ever playing the strategy that they play. You're going to come up against a team sometimes who can just bat you out of the game. Or you will come up against teams where you know that regardless for how strong your bowling attack is, you can't defend X total because of the way that you've chosen to play. But that style will win you most games of cricket, or more games of cricket than you lose. So it's a tough one for Pakistan. Again, I think they'll squeeze through their group, and then beyond the semi-finals is a lottery. Anything can happen, a bit like 1992, I suppose. But I think, I think they'll get through to the semi-finals, and I wouldn't like to say anything beyond that, just because, you know, I don't want to set anybody's expectations high. But they do have like some very, very good players. I'm not going to talk about the most obvious thing, the middle order. Everybody talks about that. I think they've got some very, very good players. Getting the order, I kind of hope we're getting very close now, and there's only potentially another 3 games to play for them before they actually play the World Cup game against India. Like I hope they can work out what their best 11 is before then, but it's getting really close now, and we still don't know. So I think semis, and then who knows.
Yeah, and that's how Pakistan usually plays. I must say, I've watched cricket a long time, especially Pakistan cricket, and it's every single time they give you a heart attack, right? Be it whichever opposition, it's always that feeling, and you hate it, but you love it at the same time, especially if Pakistan wins at the end. It's like, oh my God, what did we just witness? If I had to pick one player, well, if you had to pick one player for Pakistan, you mentioned Rizwan earlier, would it be Rizwan or would it be someone else?
I think I'd probably... because it's Australia, I'm a bit more reluctant to go with Rizwan. But at the same time, you know, he's one of the few players guaranteed to start at the moment. Pakistan. You know what? I'd like to see Shadab do well. I'd really like to see Shadab do well. I think if given the opportunity to consistently bat at number 4, I know he's played a couple of games at number 4, and it's too early really to make that big call. But you know, he's done it for Islamabad United. He's proven himself domestically, and they value the PSL data very highly within the Pakistan team. Clearly, well, when it suits what they're trying to do. So I think, yeah, I'd like to see. I'm going to go with Shadab. I think again, you know, those quick leg spinners. You know, it's the home of Shane Warne. Let's see how well he does. I think he's got a lot of value to offer. I'm trying to pick slightly alternate names for you as well. I don't want to go Babar, Shaheen, Rizwan. You know, like I'm trying to earn Haris Rauf. Like Haris, man. No, sorry, I take that back. I'm going Haris Rauf. Obviously, he's going back to his spiritual home, the place where he was discovered. You know, he's so good in the Big Bash historically. Those pacey wickets are really going to suit him. Oddly enough, it's not the quicker balls that I'm looking forward to seeing. I'm looking forward to seeing his slower balls. Yeah, exactly. Those cutters on that surface, like his changes of pace. You know, when you got that much pace to work with, your change of pace becomes a bit more kind of pronounced. So. Yeah, I'm going to go Haris Rauf. He's the guy to watch, and he's the kind of man of the moment for Pakistan anyway.
Yeah, totally. And one very important fact about Haris Rauf, the way he's developed his game over the past 2 years, it's amazing. I remember there was a jump from Shaheen Afridi first bursting onto the scene, and then 2020, a stark difference in Shaheen Afridi's bowling. I think Haris Rauf's done exactly the same thing, but imprinted it between 2020 and 2022. He is an essential part of the Pakistani 11. And if you spoke to me last year, I would say Haris Rauf should be out of the team. He should be this, he should be that. Because he's actually proven himself, I can't really say that. He is one of the best bowlers Pakistan has, especially without Shaheen Afridi at the moment. He's the star with the ball. Let's talk about South Africa, because I know we're running out of time. With South Africa, a team that has a lot of players that can do a lot of jobs, but their captain, unfortunately, is in a really bad state at the top of the order. There's conversation about should Reza Hendricks play, should South Africa have David Miller captaining the side. How do you see South Africa in this T20 World Cup?
No, it's not going too well for David Miller when he's captaining the ODI team at the moment, to be fair, against India. But yeah, I know what you mean. It's a difficult one from a South African perspective because they want to back Tender and his run. But I think they will have to look at making some difficult decisions to get through this, because they've also under the radar got like a fantastic side. You know, they've again, people don't really consider them a big threat, but you know, when you got players like Enric Nortje in your lineup, you know, and it gets so vastly underrated for me. You know, Peklakwe, who's evolved into an excellent T20 bowler, so much so that you know the franchises are kind of like, lining up to get the signature. I think, I expect to see Quinton de Kock do reasonably well, even though he's been sort of hit and miss recently. David Miller, as you say, like they've got the players. They've certainly got the personnel to do it. On those surfaces in Australia, again, it becomes a bit of a lottery if they can squeeze out some of the other teams, because we expect really it'll be some combination of Pakistan, India, or South Africa getting through that group. Maybe the West Indies, depending on if they end up in that group. But I think, that you expect it to be some combination of them. And for me, I think they'll get edged out, South Africa. I could be wrong, but I think they'll get edged out. And you'll see like India, Pakistan, and Australia, England go through to the semis. But that's what I'm thinking.
Fair enough. And I don't have to ask you who your top 4 are at the end of this video, so I'm okay with that. Right? The last team in Group 2 is Bangladesh. Bangladesh have not performed as well as we'd like, especially in T20 cricket over the last couple of years, with the likes of the loss of Tamim Iqbal and then Mahmoodullah and Shakib Al Hasan. Even though he's the highest wicket taker, one of the most number of runs in T20s, he's still not able to perform as consistently, especially in world tournaments, especially recently on top of that. How do you see Bangladesh in this year's T20 World Cup?
Yeah, I think they'll struggle. I think this is not the surface for them to spring the surprise that people want them to. I mean, a lot of people would love to see Bangladesh do quite well. I think they'll get a win. I think they'll get a win off. Like, that's the big call for me. I think they'll get a win, not just the teams that come through from the preliminary stage, but I think they'll get a win off maybe Pakistan, India, or South Africa, one of the 3. And I mean, yes, losing personnel is always very tricky. It's not just about the quality of the player, but it's sometimes about the way how settled your team is, and the unit that you are. I mean, just think about it. Like, if you're in an office and there's like 4 people there, but then the accountant leaves and you've got to bring in a new accountant who's just as good maybe, but they don't know how you like your how many sugars in your tea, and they don't know how you like this, and they, whatever it is. I don't know if accountants make teas for people in offices now that I think about it, but yeah, I just think it takes time to settle, and that's the point about settling that people don't often follow. And yeah, I think it could be tough, but like they've got some players to watch. There's a lot of people that I like in that team, and I've got a lot of time for. So I hope they do well. I'd like to see them win at least a few games. I can't see them progressing to the semi-finals though.
That's fair enough. And in terms of analogies, I'm going to try and figure out a way to just add all the analogies into one video and just release that, because that is just amazing. The football, the office, absolutely love it. I'm talking nonsense at the moment, man. Do me little. Don't do that. No. It's not nonsense. I'm absolutely enjoying it. Genuinely, I'm having a ball, man. Just one player from Bangladesh, though. You mentioned there are certain players that could come into that category. Who would you pick if you had to pick one?
So I must confess, I'm not completely familiar with the squad that's going over there, but like from recent players that I've seen, obviously the likes of Shakib and Taskin Ahmed, and I imagine Mehdi Hassan will go. So like Mehdi, yeah, I think he'd do quite well. Musaddiq Hussain, Afif Hussain, Afif Hussain. I think there's something to him. I don't think he opens the batting though, and I'm going to stick to my rule.
I don't know if sometimes open.
Mehdi Hassan does sometimes open. I think he opened a few days ago, didn't he? Right, against New Zealand. I'm going to go with Mehdi Hassan. Yeah, I think he's going to be the guy again. He's part of this new crop of Bangladesh players that have been quite they've been young, but they've been very audacious almost in the way that they've approached the game. He's only 24, 25 years old, 26 maybe. I don't know, but he looks young, and he's been around the world. I remember he played for the Trinbago Knight Riders as well, in the Caribbean Premier League. I think there's something about him, just the idea of having the off-break bowler as well. So many left-handed batters now opening the batting around the world, and you think about the people in that group as well. They'll get a chance to bowl to a lot of left-handers, especially if he gets to bowl in the power play. So I think Mehdi could surprise a few people.
Fantastic. All right, thank you very much. Just last question before I end things: if you had to pick the two teams that would come through from the first round into the Super 12s, who would those 4 teams be?
So this is tricky, just because the structure of it makes it a bit more awkward. So I'm going to say from Group A, I'm going to pick Sri Lanka. I expect Sri Lanka to come through. And oof, I know Namibia played in the previous. They played in the previous World Cup, but I think the UAE team might edge out the Netherlands and Namibia this time around. I just think I've seen a little bit more of them. I'm kind of guessing here a little bit. I'm not an expert. Well, the guy you want is Peter Della Penna, but or Tasneem Summer, like Khan. She's very good as well. But I think the UAE will come through their group, as in them and Sri Lanka. All right, from Group A. And Group B, I think the West Indies, I'm going to go quite conventional here. I think the West Indies and Ireland and Zimbabwe will have a close call, but I think Zimbabwe will just fall short of Ireland, and Ireland will come through. I remember Scotland. Yeah, I remember Scotland did really well in the last World Cup as well, didn't they? Scotland won like a 2 of their 3 games, but then they lost out on net run rate. No, wait, did they? Did they not go through?
I think they qualified, didn't they?
Yeah, they did qualify. I beg your pardon. Yeah, of course they did, because we had John Blaine on commentary with us, and he got to stay for longer because they went through. So it was great fun. Yeah, I think Scotland were great last time. It'd be nice to see them build on that this year. But realistically, I think it'll be the West Indies and Ireland, who've been playing a lot of T20 cricket this year. I think they'll just edge out Zimbabwe. So there you go.
All right, fantastic. That is brilliant. Thank you, Aatif. Really appreciate it. For everyone watching, please do like, share, and subscribe. Check out Aatif Nawaz on every platform in the world. He's everywhere, genuinely. You look at him on post-match chat, you look at him on any other platform, you'll just type Aatif Nawaz. I typed Aatif Nawaz just before he joined, and I saw, wow, that's like a lot of pages just on one name. And it is you. It's not someone else. It is you.
Yeah.
Be it comedy, be it cricket, be it BBC, be it anything in the world. You're doing a great job. Thank you so much for taking the time. It's been a pleasure. It's been an honor. As I said before, you're a great person. You talk sense, which is really important, especially about cricket and especially about Pakistan cricket. So I'm very glad I was able to host you. And yeah, there we go. Thank you, everyone. Until next time, please take care, stay safe. I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.